set, where them hands, where them holes, where them throws, you know what I'm saying? Cecil.
All right, so I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to depart a little bit from how I normally would analyze and give my opinion on this. This isn't going to dovetail with what you probably would usually expect me to say on this channel. This was a discussion that I read on Quora. It's an old discussion now, but it's a very pertinent topic. And I should be able to look at this and talk about it by fair use, okay? So, I believe his name was Calvin Naito. He asked, why don't people who practice martial arts show their skills when asked? So someone named Michael Bloom, a 7th Dan Shihan and Kyoshi, very high-ranking black belt. I'm assuming if he's calling himself Shihan and Kyoshi, he must be doing a Japanese martial art. And later on it says that he is. So basically, very experienced karateka answered this question. So let me go through it a little bit here. So, why don't people who practice martial arts show off their skills? He says, of course, it depends upon the circumstances. Who is asking? What is the setting? Why they're asking? What is their intent? How do they know about your martial arts background? When I began training in karate at 13 years old, many years ago, I'm just going to paraphrase to get to the good part. His parents were asked for them to show off their skills, so they would do katas, kicking skills, and shows of calisthenics and physical strength. Harmless stuff, good family fun. And I agree. And honestly, that's what I think anybody should show if you want to be safe. When people ask you to show off some of your martial arts skills, if you know a dance, do a dance. If you don't know how to do any of the war dances that we call, forms, katas, pumses, tools, hyungs, patterns, and maybe just demonstrate some falling techniques if you're in more of the grappling background. Or just demonstrate a few kicks or something here or there. However, when he got to where people have a lot of egos, however, when I got to college, my best friend at the time was a judoka with more muscular than I. He insists that we spar, and I agreed, thinking it harmless stuff. He would close the distance, I would counterattack with strikes to the head or body, but would make sure to pull the techniques in order not to hurt him. Okay? Of course, he ignored my barrage since they caused him no harm and would throw me after my counterattack ended. I told him that he would have been struck had I not pulled, but he seemed unimpressed. Finally, I tired of this and told him that if he put his hands upon me again, I would drop him. He ignored this, and on a future occasion, grabbed me, whereupon I drove a knee into his solar plexus and dropped him instantly. His inability to understand the potential severity of my techniques if landed caused him a false sense of security and an inflated sense of ability. Here is a famous scene from he talks about Seven Samurai. I'm not going to go into that because I don't want a copyright strike. Okay? However, while my ego was assuaged by dropping him and my reputation as a fighter among our university friends was enhanced, my relationship with him was irretrievably damaged. This was a bad trade. Now that I am much older, I realized that I should have swallowed my ego and not agreed to mix it up. The truth is, I was not skillful enough back then to deflect his attack without hurting him, and therefore should never have engaged in this game. And then he asks these questions. What about the stranger? Is asking. This is a potentially dangerous situation. Why are they asking? Are they trying to dominate you? Are they looking for an excuse to fight? Now that's something you need to consider. They could be trying to just bait you into a fight, and they may have weapons or friends who might jump in, swallow your pride, and politely decline, leave if you have to. Now that I am older and less of a hothead and more skilled, I turn down these requests from acquaintances into a teaching moment. I describe a technique and teach them how to do it rather than show myself how to do it, and I invite them to attend my class or seminar. I never get asked by strangers because strangers don't know about my training. Okay, and he's got a couple more quotes here. So, depending on how long I want to make this, first I'm going to talk about this here. I think he did him a favor. I feel I'm qualified to say that I think he did that guy a favor. And I'm not really biased either way because I have at least a black belt ranking in judo, and I have a black belt ranking, well, more than black belt ranking in taekwondo, which is very much karate adjacent. So I understand the delusions and lack of skills that can come from both sides, from striker and grappler. We have to remember when we're training in a martial art that we're fighting someone who's playing by our rules. There are plenty of things that we do when we punch kick that may not go over so well if the person could grab you. But you also have to remember, grappler, when you're grappling, there are techniques and things that you do within the grappling rule set that may not go over so well if the person could just hit you or bite you. And either or, there are things that may not go over so well if the person has a weapon or friends. Now, when I was in a similar situation, I'm going to be deliberately vague because to protect, as some people used to say, to protect the guilty. I'll just talk about what I did. When I was about that age, I wrestled with a person who was on paper more experienced at wrestling and grappling than me. We wrestled. He asked to wrestle. He agreed to wrestle. We wrestled. I didn't even use my training yet. We wrestled, and I pinned him 3 times. And then he got mad because I damaged his jewelry. He got angry, and then he punched me in the face. And a friend who I still hold dear to this day came, grabbed me, and the way he grabbed me, there's no way I could have broken out of the hold at that time without hurting him. Because I wasn't skillful enough to do the escape without hurting the guy. And he knew that I wouldn't hurt him to get at the guy that just punched me in the face. So I had to walk around with a black eye. Now, what I think a lot of people don't know and probably would think that I'm lying about, and I know that I'm not, and people who know me know that I'm not too. I mean, who trained me at that up to that time would know that I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Is I let the guy hit me. I actually let the guy hit me just to intimidate him because I went down a little bit and I came back up. If anybody was watching that incident, if they remember back, they probably noticed I did this. No, I didn't freeze. I let the guy hit me because I didn't think his punches were that hard, and they weren't. So I was just going to do that just as an intimidation thing. And if you don't believe that I could let someone hit me because I don't think the power is that good, there's another incident where someone did hit me and I let it go. Because I knew he was having a bad day, and it was far scarier for me to look at him like, if you do that again, I'll kill you, than to actually hurt him. Especially since I was a lot bigger than him anyway, so it's like, I'm not going to do that. I was mad, don't get me wrong, I let my anger come through, and I said some things that are not YouTube safe. Wasn't any threats, but I said some things that, were this back in the day Def Comedy Jam probably would have wound up on the stage. But, yeah. There is a thing of, if you got a striking background, you can be at a level where you're not skillful enough to neutralize the grappler without hurting the grappler. So, if you throw your counter techniques, when you're working with someone else that's in your same striking background, they will acknowledge, go, oh yeah, you'd have got me. Oh, you'd have got me. Oh, you'd have got me. But a lot of people who are on the grappling side of the house just don't want to accept that. Now that's one thing where, what I'm about to say, where I eventually ended up agreeing with the internet to a degree, and that is to handle grapplers, learn grappling. Not because grappling is better, but because that's what grapplers understand. That's what they respect. And if you show that you can grapple with them, they will understand and respect that. Then you could do that. Then you could show them, now this is what would happen if I was actually allowed to strike you, and they're probably going to be more open and receptive to that. It's all about just having more tools in your toolbox. But especially back then, if he's been training for 45 years, he's, let's say, even if he started at 1 year old, he would be younger than me, but he still would be trained up through the era that I first came through. People used to think that grappling was a waste of time. People used to think that, especially if you're talking about self-defense. Now, yes, if you're strictly mean myself, defense, protecting me, you don't even know how to grapple. You really don't. Now, if you want to talk about some de-escalation, you want to talk about handling situations where you don't necessarily need to hurt the other person. You want to talk about not getting sued. Grappling comes into play. But then again, you can also get to a level, and I don't mean to sound like I'm bragging, because it took me a long time to be able to do this. And I will admit, I don't think it would have taken other people as long to get to this point that I'm about to talk about as it took me. And that is, you're not grappling, but you're still moving around in a way where you don't have to hurt the other person. To do that consciously. I did that when I was younger to someone who attacked me one time, but it wasn't conscious. Because after I did it, I had no idea how I did it. I had to think back to where I learned it. And then it came to me. But then to try to teach that, I couldn't teach it. But now I could teach it. But still, even if I teach it, it's not something you're going to pick up right away unless you're a gifted athlete. You're going to have to go through all the steps of having to have that type of thing first, then get to grappling around, then soften up, then get to the point where you feel energy and tensions, and you get used to looking at, using, basically applying geometry out in the real world, and you can just step and move and stand at the right spot. So if you ever hear things like octagon theory, and I don't mean cage fighting, I mean like movements, and, positioning, movement, standing at the right spot to come off the attack, angles of attack. That's the type of thing that can help you get to the point to where, or at least one approach to where when someone's coming at you, you don't necessarily have to hurt them. You can redirect or just let them tire themselves out. Now, that's where things like Aikido come in handy, in my opinion. Those type of styles. And Aikido and Hapkido type of redirection. And very what we call, if you have to block or deflect, soft ones. Very, very soft ones. So the title of this video is He Did Him a Favor. He did his friend a favor. Should he have not, he shouldn't have, hit him or whatever? Yeah, I'll say, yeah, he shouldn't have. He should, maybe he should have done something like I did, right? But guess what? No, he did him a favor. He did him a favor. And I'm being vague to protect the guilty. The way I handled my situation that was similar to this was still the best way, because of the players involved in that situation. That was the best way to handle that situation, that particular situation. Politically at the time, that was the best way for me to handle it. Me take all visible L's. That was the best way for me to play that. But this situation, because I was not on the same social standing as the other person. Now, they wasn't on the same, like, you could say political, even though we're not in politics, but you know what I mean. Social, socioeconomic, whatever you want to call it, interpersonal, that type of thing, campus politics, That was the best way for me to handle that. And I think in this situation, since it seems like they were probably both on the same equal social standing on the campus, I think that was the best way for him to handle that situation. He didn't hurt the guy. He actually hit him in an area where he may have knocked the wind out of him at worst, but he didn't harm him. He just hurt his feelings, and he let him know that if you're going to try to force grappling where you shouldn't, you're going to get hurt. And, since judo is called the gentle way, and see, that's where people get in trouble too, being too competition minded. Judo works best when you use the other person's energy against themselves. I have used judo on people in real fights, right? I've used judo on people for real, and I've used taekwondo on people for real. Okay? I've used boxing on people for real, even though I'm not certified in that. And I'm telling you, when you use arts for what they are used for, and when you are truly in the business of self-defense, protection, not trying to hurt anybody unless you absolutely have to, pretty much all martial arts styles work beautifully. You just have to be doing what you should be doing. It doesn't make you, let's not get it twisted. It doesn't make you bulletproof. It doesn't mean you can handle 85 dudes armed with nunchucks and baseball bats. I said nunchucks, didn't I? Instead of nunchuckles. Whatever. You know what I'm saying. We have to get the ego out the way, and this is where I will agree with Shihan Kyoshi. Now that I'm older, less of a hothead and more skilled. So it's really the more skilled, because we're not necessarily less of a hothead just because we're older. We should be, but there's no way to guarantee that. But the more skilled you are, the better you will be able to handle this stuff. And I like his quotes down here. Don't be a show-off, never be too proud to turn back. There are old pilots and bold pilots, but no old bold pilots. That's E. Hamilton Lee. I don't know who that is. I probably should learn. And an old proverb, it's better to keep quiet and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. And this is what he does. He takes that and puts it into here. It is better to withhold a demonstration and be thought unskillful than show off and remove all doubt. So I've never met Mr. Bloom here. Maybe I will one day. I hope I do. Seems like a pretty wise fellow, in my opinion. Must be very skillful to reflect like this and communicate this well. But I hope you don't still feel too bad about that, sir, because I think you did him a favor. I really do. And it's not the way that I would prefer people handle things. Like I said, it's not necessarily the way that I handled a similar situation. But unfortunately, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And at least that young man that was hurt in a safe area where it wasn't real, it wasn't high stakes, he wasn't getting robbed or worse, and then found out what happens when somebody hits him. Thanks for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Be sure to people like to talk about the martial arts in peace. And as always, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.